Oh, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Doll Benfica podcast. We are back in the studio, as you could see, and it's quite a good feeling to be here next to Cristiano. Cristiano Oliveira is here,
What's up, everybody?
and Patrick. Patrick is he's been recruited to fill in for Mr. Santos while Mr. Santos is away.
We're lucky
Two
Pinto Costa
weeks
didn't
in a
swap him up.
row.
2 weeks in a row.
We're lucky Pinto da Costa didn't pick him up on his way here.
That would have been if a sporting podcast will be interested in him.
Good point. Good point.
In between a trip to Naples, Patrick is making another podcast.
The world's most interesting man.
You can't beat that. Anyway, welcome everybody. You are watching and listening to the Talking to the Doll Benfica podcast. My name is Alfredo. As I've said, Cristiano Oliveira is here. Also, Patrick Kendrick is here. And on tonight's agenda, episode number 188, we will look back at Benfica's game against Arouca this past weekend. We will also talk about Benfica's game today for the Taça da Liga against Moreirense, a very convincing win that catapulted Benfica to the semifinals of the Taça da Liga.
Estás com uma velocidade.
Pá, ainda não comecei a ver, pá, é por isso é que é, pá, quando começar a ver esta merda que é... Faz uma derrapagem que tu nem sabes. No, I'm excited. I'm excited to be at the studio. It's always nice to be next to Cristiano because he just has this glow about him. I don't know if it's just because you're so white.
I was thinking about wearing a black shirt, but too late.
Anyway, so as I've said, Arouca, Moreirense. We'll also preview the Moreirense, which we play them again. We go travel again to Moreirense, and we'll also, if we have time, I wanted to discuss the Pedro Proença's dealings in China, which seemed pretty comical to me. But we'll get into that. I know that it doesn't directly affect Benfica, but it directly affects Portuguese football and the development, a youth talent. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So without further ado, let's get right into the Arouca game. Benfica played Arouca this past weekend. I'll give you the lineup. Júlio César was in goal. Almeida, Lisandro Jardel, and Eliseu across the back. Samaris came in for the newly injured Fejsa. What a surprise!
The often injured.
The often injured. I wish somebody had some kind of a calculation of how many minutes Fejsa has actually played during the season, as opposed to how many minutes he's been injured. I think that'd be interesting.
Well, since he's arrived at Benfica, he's probably missed more minutes than he's played.
I would agree with you.
I would say so.
And just now, when he was just about to really come into his own, and
but here's the thing: does anyone really know how severe it was? I mean, is it a major injury, or is it just some precautionary? Let's hold him out. We're playing two very weak opponents. Let's keep him out. I mean, it could be a little bit of that.
Yeah, the medical report, and maybe Nelson can help us out with this because he seems to know about these athletic injuries. Foi uma contusão na coxa. So what that is?
That's a bruise. That's a bruise.
So that's a bruise
to you and I.
Yeah,
that's a fancy word to say uma pisadura.
So if you look at somebody's legs, then you would understand how that could be debilitating for him. He's not the most built guy in the world, but he was doing well. But here comes an opportunity for Samaris. But I'll give you the rest of the lineup. Pizzi and Carcelo on the wings, as we've grown accustomed to. Mitro seems to have reserved the place in the starting lineup for now. And, of course, Jonas was not only terrorizing the east coast of the United States, but he was also terrorizing Arouca.
I think he's arrived in Europe today.
And terrorizing Mitroglou, but more on that later, I guess.
Yeah. So, fairly easy game for Benfica, especially when you scored that early. And Pizzi got on the scoreboard 1-0. I think they were inside 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I think I might have gone to the kitchen to get a drink, and I missed the goal. But a very good game for Benfica, and I know that Patrick didn't get a chance to watch the game live. I know Cristiano also was in and out.
I watched it between sleeping and staying awake and
shoveling snow. And it was quite a game for Benfica. I think that as we've said, Benfica has been consistent and is now a streak of 9
consecutive wins.
27
goals scored, 5 suffered, and it should really be
That's
3
ridiculous.
guys. Let's talk. I don't want to mention the last 2 goals they suffered,
Yeah,
but I mean they've been on a tear of late.
Yeah, but quite an important game, a decent half by Benfica. Arouca, I expected Arouca to be a lot better too, but when you suffer goals that early, the second goal was by Mitroglou in the 19th, and Cristiano, I don't know. I know that you've played a lot and you've scored a lot of beautiful goals, but I don't know if you've ever scored a goal like that.
Not with the left foot, with the right foot, because I'm ready.
Right, but
it never stops.
Yeah. No, so listen, I mean, what else could the guy do in that instance? I mean, the ball came straight at him, and credit to him, he had the confidence to do what it was, and he was quick on it, and he reacted quickly, and all you had to do was just guide it the other way. And even the goalie, who had a tremendous game, must have had the game of his life in the first game of the first round, I should say, when Patrick and I were in attendance. That day, the guy saved everything, and I think he wasted more time than God knows what that game, if I recall correct. But caught him off guard, and Benfica were off and running right from the second minute once Pizzi got on the scoreboard. You could tell all game plan and tactics by Arouca was absolutely thrown out the window from that point on. And credit to Benfica for coming on early with the pressure and able to get on the score sheet early.
Absolutely, and Cristiano, I think that Jimenez attempted that back heel. The ball might end up for a throw in for Arouca, probably.
Yeah, that would hit the corner flag for sure.
So the biggest thing for us here, Patrick, is Gaitan. Gaitan comes into the game in the 66th minute, and right away you could tell the difference. The guy does. It's absolute playmaker, absolute world-class difference maker. Anything. I'm running out of adjectives to give this guy, but he's just the difference maker for this Benfica team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing he offers you that perhaps only Medi Carcella offers you, albeit in a very light version, is that he's the one player in the team that can really commit players at pace. Jonas is very technically good, and Jonas can beat a man as well, but to get someone actually on the ball, driving at the opposition and being able to change the tempo and change the pace, Gaitan is really the player that offers that the most in Benfica's squad. So great to have him come back, and the perfect game to reintroduce him as well. The game is won, essentially. You give him 25 minutes. You say, go out there, show, get back into the feel of it. And from all accounts, he did that very quickly. I know we'll talk about the other game later on this evening, the first of the 2 games against Moreirense, but he was exceptional this evening, which it was almost as if he'd never been away, which, given that he was out for the best part of a month, I think, if not more, it's quite astonishing how he's just able to pick up where he left off. So, which I think is why, when we've discussed in the past Salvio coming back, I think maybe we're sort of going on expectations that we've seen from Gaitan standards, where he can be out for several weeks and then come straight back in and perform at the same level. I'm not sure that will necessarily be the case with other players. Some players feel their way back in a bit better, but he's the vice captain for a reason. He is Benfica's jewel in the crown for obviously a reason, several reasons, and I know that Jonas was top scorer, and he's sort of taken the mantle whilst Gaitan's been away, but into his 7th season now, and he is the main man, and Benfica are not the same side without him, just as many sides wouldn't be.
I'm glad you mentioned Jonas right now, because last season, at the beginning of the season, when Jonas was scoring against the small clubs, and this guy to my to my left or my right, whichever, I don't know.
Your left.
My left, but you might be still to the left. I'm just looking opposite. Okay, never mind. When he was scoring these goals against these smaller clubs, and this guy was saying, well, Jonas, Mr. Tassa, and I was like, guys, you gotta wait. There's a lot more coming. Yeah. But at the time, I used to describe Jonas as a man amongst boys. The guy, you could tell he was at a different level. Even though the competition was very weak, you could tell the guy, he had a different feel about him, a different look about him when he touched the ball. And right now, Gaitan's, it's the same thing. And in particular today against the Moreirense. I mean, when they play Sporting in Porto, okay, maybe the other guys, the other athletes on the field, he doesn't stand out as much. But when you got these two types of players going up against mediocre professionals, I mean, they stand out like a sore thumb, man. These guys are terrific players. Gaitan is a magician. He's able to do whatever it is that that he wants with the ball. And I just hope he stays at Benfica for a very long time. I hope he keeps rejecting everybody else for the reasons we've mentioned in the past, that it's better to be a star at Benfica than to sit on the bench elsewhere. So I'm very excited that he's back, and he looks like he's healthy. Obviously, we got a tough stretch of games coming up now over the next month, and we need everybody healthy. Just to touch on a couple of things that Patrick said. Carcella, very, very light version. Patrick, very light version. But I do agree, though. He is one of the few players that can actually carry the ball from midfield into the attacking third, create something
one-on-one
when he's into it. Because to me, I still think at times he's lacking. He looks like the guy just going through the motions. When he wants to play and he wants to put in that fifth gear, he looks terrific. But I see too much time in between that and too much time in other times where he's just walking around, moping around, like going through the actions. And the last thing on Salvio, I guess like you said, it's expectations. But the thing that gives me confidence about Salvio is that, unfortunately for him, but fortunately for his comeback, this is not the first serious injury he suffered. He suffered 2 or 3, and every time he's come back, he's been healthy and he's met expectations, and he's bounced back to the level that he was at before he was injured. So that's what gives me confidence regarding Salvio.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I mean we've talked ad nauseum here about on the podcast about Salvio's injury and the extent of a comeback that he's going to be able to make. Because of that injury, we don't know how much is affected, because it's a guy that works a lot of explosive first step, and sometimes knee injuries can be debilitating to a guy's speed and the guy's explosion. So we're not really sure how he's going to come back. But, we got to trust that modern medicine and the right treatment is going to get the guy almost back to where he was.
I'm going to eat some crow here. I thought that it was a foregone conclusion once he came back he was going to start, because to me I take him with one good leg over Guedes with 2 good legs. So to me it was a foregone conclusion. The guy was going to start. But now the one thing where I'm going to eat crow right now is that Pizzi has actually played better. And I think the reason why Pizzi's actually picked up his game and he's played better is because they've moved him to a more comfortable position, which I've mentioned here over the last 2 years, which was this guy was a winger his whole entire career. Now all of a sudden, through the necessity, JJ needed a number 8 once Enzo left. So therefore, they forced the round peg into a square pocket, whichever way, you know the term. And he was learning on the go. And now he's on the outside. He's able to create. And I think the one thing Rui Vitória has given him a lot more freedom than what JJ did in years previous. And you can see he's flourishing. Now, I still don't think he's worth $14 million, but he's picked up his game. And that being said, I think, Jonas,
Pizzi.
Toto, Salvio. I think Salvio now will have a little bit, not as much pressure as we once expected. The guy, we need you now. He could ease more into the games, like we've mentioned with Gaitan today. Come in, against Arouca when the game's in the bag already. No pressures. Come in, get adjusted, do your thing. And so I think Pizzi definitely helps. He definitely picked up his game, and I got to tip my cap to him.
Yeah, there's a huge thing going on with Pizzi, and for you guys that are just watching the game and then not really seeing what goes on, Pizzi appears a lot between the midfield line, the defensive midfield, and the defensive line. He drifts into the middle, and he shows up as a target to Renato Sanches and Samaris or Fejsa, whatever. He's an outlet ball, and when you get the ball in between lines, you could create all kinds of chaos to the defense, because now the guys that are with their backs turned, now they got to turn their backs and defend against a guy that has a good read on the game, has a good touch. His passing could be better sometimes, but it's a guy that could create a lot of danger.
He still hit that ball off his shin, though, on the other day on the goal. He mishit it.
But anyway,
at least it looked like it.
The emergence of Pizzi has been actually one of the keys for this season. If you look back in these past games, it wasn't until Pizzi started playing in that position and appearing in these interior zones that Benfica started flourishing. Of course, I think Renato Sanches helps a lot, even though sometimes you're watching and he misses tons of passes. But Renato Sanches' willingness to, instead of when he gets the ball and he has his back turned to the defense, instead of just playing a simple ball to the back so he doesn't get trapped, he's actually courageous enough to turn and to look for a guy in between lines. And this is where Pizzi or Jonas sometimes shows up. Sometimes Jimenez drifts a little bit to the wing to get that ball, to get free of his marking. This is where the difference is happening, where guys are making moves and they're appearing in zones where it's given Benfica a very good chance in the final third.
Yeah, just on that with Renato, I think that's a mark of very good players, particularly in a defensive midfield role. Not necessarily players playing as just a pure defensive midfielder, but you'll notice it's something if you're coached well, you'll do it. But the best players do it just on autopilot. The likes of Xavi, the likes of Pirlo, Marco Verratti as well. You'll see them constantly looking left, looking right, over the shoulder. So when they get that ball, they know whether they can turn or not. They know what they're going to do next. Know if it's going to be the first time pass around the corner. They know if they can drop the left shoulder and turn away to the right because the guy's pressurizing them from behind. And I think Renato is very good at that. You can tell he's been very well coached, and that's a credit to the Benfica academy system.
Busquets is also very good at that.
Yeah, well, he's one of my most hated players. So I
hate
don't
him.
to mention him, but
I hate him, but he's terrific.
Technically, he's an absolutely fabulous player. But I'll never forget what he did with Thiago Motta against Inter. So there you go. But that's for another day. So I think absolutely, and I think Pizzi's form really has coincided with Benfica's run. I think he's up to half a dozen goals in the league now. He only got 2 last season, one of which came
4
against
in a row, right, Pat?
Penafiel. Yeah, he's on absolutely fantastic form. And you can see he's much more comfortable playing wide. They're switching wings. That's been one of Rui Vitoria's big things. Is when Carcelo or Pizzi aren't getting as much joy, then you can swap the wings, and it's good to have these very positive second strings because, as we know, if everyone's fit, Gaitan plays on the left, Salvia plays on the right. Suddenly, you've got 2 very viable options to come off the bench, and I think that's been Benfica's real strength behind this run. And I think that's where they have an edge over Porto and Sporting in the title race, is players that can come off the bench and impact the game.
Yeah, Pat, I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it once again for anyone that's tuning in for the first time. If you're playing the game and you're playing in the middle of the park, trust me, it is a lot easier to move around and do what it is you want to do on the outside. There's not as many guys around. You got a lot more space. Often when you got the pace that these guys have, you could take players on one-on-one. It frees you up a lot more. So to me, it's not a coincidence that Pizzi's game picked up because I've mentioned it on the podcast. I've said it multiple times. It's a lot easier to play on the outsides than it is in the middle. And the one thing I've noticed here and again, I'm still not crazy about Vitoria's style of play and his whole system and the whole night. But the one thing I've noticed that they have the freedom of coming into the middle and creating and even swap inside. I think Pat just mentioned that. Yeah. But I've also they could come into the middle of the park and create it and do different things. And it just seems like right now everything is hitting on all cylinders. But guys, let's not get carried away. Yeah. I mean, it is Moreirense and Arouca and a bunch of monks.
It's still and I think that's something that really this side under Rui Vitória, I don't like this tendency to just say him. It's the team playing under him, under his instructions. But that's something they still have to prove. With the exception of the win at the Calderon, Benfica yet to win a very big game this season. If you think about it. Absolutely. So, and we've got plenty of those coming up. There's 2 against Zenit, there's Porto, there's Sporting.
In the middle.
Exactly. So, and those games both come just before the Champions League games. So those are the ones where you want back-to-back wins, or if you're clever, you can draw hopefully the second leg in Russia because you've won in Lisbon, etc. But I posted a photo earlier on from today's Ebola, which shows the fixture congestion over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So
we're probably going to talk about the month of February too, if we have some time. But and just one last thing on Pizzi before we move on. JJ was up to something in the fact that he knew as far as Pizzi's presence on the field and his football brain, he was up to something. But it's almost criminal to leave the guy in the middle and not give him the freedom to come from the wing to the middle, which right now is perhaps where he's the best.
Mas o que é que o JJ ia fazer? You don't take Gaitan and Salvio out at the time. That's
No,
the
he
problem.
wasn't.
Those guys were healthy. You had nowhere else to fit this guy. And at the time, you had a need because Talisca wasn't performing at the number 8 position. Once Enzo left, man, we went a while, even until now. We just got Renato now that we finally filled that position. So they searched for a while. And again, it wasn't like you didn't have these other 2 guys who were really good players who weren't healthy. Those guys were playing. You weren't going to take him out for anyone on this roster, and let alone for Pizzi. So,
but it wasn't his full potential. He wasn't playing to his full potential. But like we said here, and if you're a follower of the podcast, that we used to say that Pizzi right now, with our lack of a number 8, he's our best 8, regardless of being played at a position.
I think
was our best 8 at the time when Renato came, and that's a different story.
Patrick actually today on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen, put the little comment talking about the rawness of the 3 Benfica youngsters. Guedes, he thinks he's raw, and I agree, 10. Semedo was 9 because of position, correct, Patrick?
Correct.
And then because he's terrible positionally defensively. And then I love him, but terrible. And then Renato 6. You could tell Renato, he's the more mature of the 3, but these guys still,
and the youngest of the 3 as well, incidentally. So
yeah. And Renato has always been a guy that played in the middle. He could play all positions in the middle.
He's very raw, and you could tell once his game develops. And to me, it seems like his game and his form have dropped of late. And again, and he's not, to me, the difference that he's doing is when I raved about him at the beginning when he initially started playing, which was the one thing I was really impressed with a youngster was the fact that he wasn't trying to do too much. He played very simple. Now you see him try, maybe coaching or maybe just him on his own, but you can see he's trying to do a little bit more. Therefore, he's messing up a little bit more also because he's getting into positions that he hasn't been to at this level, I should say. Not that he hasn't done it in the past, but at this level, he hasn't been doing. And so now maybe he's trying to do a little bit more. So therefore, you see him messing up a little bit more. But once that rawness, like Patrick, man, once that rawness comes out of his game, you can tell the guy, he's going to be one of the best box-to-box midfielders in Europe because the guy is a bruto, bro.
I think that's a good point, and I think there's 2 facets to it. I think first and foremost, he came into the side and no one had any expectations for him, and suddenly, he had this massive impact coming into the side. No one knew what to expect. He was excellent in those games. There's no denying that. There has been a difference in levels since then, and his form has dropped off. But equally, our expectations of Renato have gone up. And this is a guy who only turned 18 in August, by the way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the opposition have almost found him out in that they know more about him now. They will be devising plans for him. Right. They will have spotted weaknesses in his game, and I saw that even in the. I know we'll talk about the Taça Liga game shortly, but I saw that in the Taça Liga game as well. He seems more hurried than he was initially.
Absolutely.
Admittedly, you're always going to have more time on the ball at the Estadio da Luz because you're at home. You're dominating possession. The pitch is much better. The pitch is bigger, wider, but. He did seem quite hurried there on slightly dodgier surfaces with the ball bobbling around and the opposition players coming, closing down in 2 or 3s, and occasionally he takes 1 or 2 touches too many. That's what I'd say is the main facet of his rawness, if you will. But there's everything, as Chris has just said, I completely agree. There's everything in his game to suggest that he could go on and be brilliant. Yeah. I don't know if we want to get on to the other 2 tonight or not, but I don't see as much potential in the game of Goncalo Guedes. And I actually see Nelson Semedo as more of a right winger than a right back at the moment. He has to work a lot defensively, I think.
Before I comment on that, we need Steve back on the pod because this guy, we agree too much. We need Steve. Now, listen, I think I agree with you 100% on Guedes. I mean, I think I've said this for I don't know how long now when everybody's raving about him. But I hope he turns out, and I hope he proves me wrong, and I'll be the first one to eat crow. I love crow. I love it. But that being said, I think Semedo, I think they're going to force him to play right back. He's very good going forward, Patrick. He needs to get better defensively, but right now, hey, he's young. He's learning on the go. He's not really hurting the team that much because they haven't really played great opposition. But, even against the Atlético de Calderon, he played well. He hasn't really, he got the one call up to the Portuguese national team game, which unfortunately was the game he got hurt. He hasn't really cracked under the pressure yet. Yes, you're right. Positionally, he lacks, and he still needs to mature. He needs to, needs to develop and learn that the natural instincts of defending. But again, I don't think he's been terrible defending. So therefore, I think they're going to leave him there, Pat, and just let him get it, acquainted to that position, and I think he'll get better.
I'm sure they will, and as long as you're able to get him to learn that position in a winning side without him doing major damage, which he hasn't done by any means. It's not like he's making huge mistakes every day in the game that leads to goals. It's just occasionally his positioning gives himself a problem, but he's quick enough to get out of it. But you'd rather someone not have to rely on that every time. You'd rather him save his energy for there, keep it nice and simple. And that is the real art of defending, is not having to make slide challenges, is not having to make these emergency cover runs. It's being in the right place at the right time. Just one final thing on Guedes, though. I'm quite interested by Steve's theory about Guedes, that he sees him potentially even as a striker, which I have to say, given his ability, what I've seen so far, might not be wide of the mark. He's an okay finisher. He's very quick and he's direct. The one thing I remember watching Theo Walcott when he was 16 at Southampton, when I had a season ticket, and he was scoring goals as a centre forward. Then he went to Arsenal. They played him out wide, and it didn't really happen for him. And his best position for me has always been through the middle. And I'm just wondering whether Guedes has similar attributes from what I've seen so far, and his future might be through the middle. I don't know. He certainly in this team, he's got very little chance of playing in the short term through the middle. Pat, I know Chris's theory, and here it comes.
If you play him as striker, he's going to be another Jimenez.
No,
the guy that hustles.
No.
Dude, I don't think he's got.
He's got better feet.
What? This much better?
He's got better feet. He's a guy that moves well into space.
So does Jimenez. Jimenez is terrific. Yeah. Jimenez as an overall striker, forget the scoring goals part. The guy's terrific.
No.
It's the part of when he has to put the final touch on the ball. And I think it's the same thing with Guedes. Guedes is very good physically. The guy, come on, bro. We need to stop with this young thing, man. I mean, but you're playing at this level, bro.
Well, and here's the thing that, and I hate to mention his name, that our former coach always used to say that these players want to burn stages. They want to leapfrog stages. And I think that
that was his excuse not to play the kids.
It's very important for some of these guys to hit those stages. It's a learning curve to learn and to mature and to evolve as a player. The thing about Renato that I wanted to say, I think the more we watch Renato week in, week out, the more we forget that he's only 18 years old.
Yes.
I mean, the physical prowess, you couldn't tell that this kid is 18 with the physical prowess that he has. His presence also, but
it's not the physical that I question.
It's
the touch.
It's the touch. Well,
it's the touch. And again, he could get better, but the way I look at it is, if you're 18 years old and you don't have it, you're not going to get that touch out of just practicing by yourself, kicking the ball against the wall. Go ahead, kick it against the wall. You're going to get it. It doesn't work like that. You either got it or you don't.
And I think as well, yes, they are very young. Yes, you make allowances for this. But we're talking about Benfica here. This is a team that has to win trophies every single season.
No.
We're not talking about the team, the green team from the city, where you can introduce lots of young players and you don't win a league title for 15 years. You have to win trophies every single season. And it's only if the players are good enough that they're going to be in. And so, yes, you can make allowances for people's inexperience and immaturity and rawness and so on and so forth, as long as they perform to a certain basic level and you can see development in their game and you see that, okay, he's made the mistake once, he's made the mistake twice, he's not going to make it a third time. And he's starting to learn. And I think that is definitely the case, certainly with Renato. And I think as of next season, he's going to be brilliant when he's had a full pre-season. I think Guedes does need to go out and get some first team football elsewhere. I think he's only 19, so that's more than he's got plenty of time. Semedo was 22, so he's that little bit older, and he is a first team regular. So it's now time for him to push on and really say, actually I can defend, and I'm sure they'll get to that.
I know I've been a little bit harsh on Guedes, guys. Listen, I want him to be the best he could be, just as much as you guys do. And I think he'll be a good player. I just don't think he's at that level. A lot of people
rush kids.
You can't rush him. A lot of people rushed to say the next Cristiano Ronaldo, Manchester United, this and that isn't. And to me, I just don't. And again, I hope I'm wrong. I think he's going to be a quality player. I just don't know if he's going to be the next level type of player. And the other thing regarding Semedo, Patrick, I want to get back to this before real quick, was years ago, Benfica bought two guys. One, I think it was like 4 or 5 years apart, but one was Miguel, who's a midfielder, who came in, struggled.
Who was a winger.
Came in, struggled, sent him out on loan. The other guy was Fabio Quintron, who I'm pretty sure you're well aware. Same thing, struggled. They sent him to Zaragoza. Zaragoza, after 6 months, terminated his contract. They send him back. He goes on loan to Nacional. The only reason why Benfica even decided to call him back is because the final game of the year, they beat Porto 3-2, and I think he scored 2 goals, or he might have scored all 3, if I'm not mistaken. And then, but these were guys that were all midfielders and attacking players. When they brought in Fabio Quintron, they brought in 2 other guys that you might have heard of, Angel Di Maria, and the other guy, the greatest American soccer player of all time, Freddie Adu.
And vacuum seller.
Now he's a club promoter as well. Yeah, they all struggle for playing time, and so they sent them out. And these guys couldn't defend. No. Miguel couldn't defend for his life. And all of a sudden, the guy started. It reminds me. He reminds me a lot more of Semedo than Quintron does. Very similar players. And again, I'm not trying to be funny, not because of their color, ladies and gentlemen, but because of the way that they play. I think Semedo, I think, will go along the same path, and I think he'll reach the same heights that Miguel did. And Miguel is a tremendous player, national team starter, and I love them at Benfica.
Let me just say one more thing on Semedo before we move on to the other 2 topics. It's a lot easier to teach a winger to defend than it is to teach a back to attack. Absolutely. Obviously, you got the instinct of going forward in a winger that you can't teach an instinct to a defender.
You couldn't teach me to defend for nothing.
But it's easier to because defending, really, if you have speed, it's all about positioning.
It's not about the defending.
It's about positioning.
It's not about position. You know what defending is about? Pat, let me know if you agree. Defending is about want. You have to want to defend. If you don't have it in you,
you're a professional.
You're not going to defend.
You're a professional getting paid. All right, it's either you defend or you go sit on the bench. What do you do?
If you guys
to me, defending is focus and what happens off the ball. You focus on all the time. Positioning, that comes into it, but it's focus. It's being in the game all the time, even when you're inactive. And what I mean by inactive is when you're not on the ball. It's following your marker. It's not ball watching. It's certainly not that. It's following your marker. It's being aware of the other defenders around you. It's making partnerships with the right winger if you're playing fullback. All of these different things, and Semedo has to be able to master all of those different things. And there's a lot of different facets to it. And actually, fullback is, I always used to joke that if you want to go up a level, then you sort of, you always see the best players as kids. They all start as strikers, and then suddenly they go from striker to right wing, and then they go from right wing to right back, and it's sort of, as you go up a level. And there is a bit of that, I think, in youth team football. I'm not saying that's the case now. Obviously, we're talking about the professional game, but 100%. I think a lot of what's it's a rather misunderstood position, I think, fullback, and the modern fullback is required to get forward, and he does that very well. But let's be honest. First and foremost, you want the fullbacks to defend, and once they're able to do that effectively, I was watching a press conference with Mark Wilmots, the Belgian head coach, the other day, and he says, "I want my fullbacks to defend. Once they can do that, if they give me anything else, that's a bonus." But Belgium win a lot of games.
Well, Pat, I tell people all the time, if you want your kid to become a professional soccer player, do what you got to do. Make him a left back, because there are not many, and not many very good ones at that. So make him that. His chances will absolutely increase. Just make him a left back. There's not very many good ones.
And then he can sign for Benfica as well.
Let's rein this in a little bit. We kind of got a little bit off topic. We're not rambling. We make all great topics, but a couple more things that I wanted to bring up before we leave this Arouca game was number one, Samaris, who had been struggling, was sitting on the bench. Then the opportunities that he was given in the Taça da Liga, he seemed to be squandering. Now we see a Samaris that. At a better level. The one thing that I noticed was his release was a lot quicker. His passing was a lot more objective and simpler. A game that's his game more similar to what Fejsa was really doing. And I think that he had a really good game based on that. And the thing that a lot of people missed, he gets subbed in the 75th minute because Rui Vitória felt that he needed to hear that applause from the fans, which is going to be great for his
Confidence.
Confidence.
Listen, I'm gonna let Patrick talk because to me, impressing against Arouca and against Moreirense.
Nonetheless,
Vai lá,
he
Patrick.
played against Oriental, didn't impress.
Tem razão. Vai lá, Patrick.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's a very good point. As I said, I wasn't able to see the game; I've just seen the highlights. But and that's good man management. Again, something we have to praise Mr. Vitoria for, and that is very good man management. You're there in front of a big crowd at home. Let him hear the ovation. This is a guy who was instrumental in last year's championship win. He's not just been forgotten. Okay, Fejsa has been in a run of good form that's coincided with good results. You don't change a winning team, etc. Does that mean that Fejsa is necessarily above Samaris in the pecking order? If you ask the manager or the rest of the coaching staff or even the majority of the fans to pick their best 11 for a 4-4-2 system, how many would opt for Samaris over Fejsa? I think it's one of the big question marks in the team. So, very good decision to take him off if that indeed was the reason behind it, as opposed to taking him off because he's got a yellow card and he's on edge and he's about to get a second one, which is often what happens with Samaris. And that's the main area of this game that lets him down. If he were able to cut out those yellow cards, he could be an infinitely better player, in my opinion, because it starts to really condition his style of play. No, in fact, it doesn't condition his style of play when it should, and he starts to give the team a problem because he's a walking red card at times.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching and listening right now, you listen to the Benfica podcast. Myself, Cristiano Oliveira, Alfred Famasas, Patrick Kendrick. If you have any questions for us up here, go ahead using the hashtag Benfica podcast.
That's right.
And in a few minutes, we'll try our best to give you an educated answer.
Yeah, and I just one last thing, and Patrick, he touched up a little bit on the Mitroglou and Jonas, and this was Benfica's.
That was ugly.
Benfica's third goal of the game against Arouca, where it was kind of a loose ball, and both players went for the ball. And Jonas beat.
It depends who you ask.
Jonas beat Mitroglou to get the goal, and apparently there was a little bit of tension. I think the media was very quick to point out that there was tension between the two. The day after, they were going through some recuperating training at the Seychelles. They were on bikes, and apparently everything was fine. Jonas smiled. He was blowing Mitroglou kisses. Mitroglou was smiling, but. To me, this is a non-issue. This is something that the media wanted to make a big deal out of it. It's a non-issue for me. Patrick, I don't know if you got to read, or I know that you didn't watch it live. I don't know if you caught anything, but what are your feelings?
Well, first of all, I hate to be a cynic, but the photo from the gym is just good public relations. That's PR, which and
your boy Lems. Your boy Lems took that picture.
As is befitting an institution of Benfica's size, of course. So that's one thing. Diffuse it as quickly as possible and do so in an active way. So it's good thinking from the club. Secondly, these competitive guys, what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch. That's point 2. And point number 3 is how many times do you see players fighting over a penalty before one guy then getting his way and missing the penalty? There's a big difference here. Whoever got to the ball was going to score, so it's not too much of a problem. And Jonas is chasing not only the golden boot in the league, he's also chasing those records to Mario Jardel. Well, they're not records because you've got Perote and all those goal scorers, Sporting, etc. But he's chasing, certainly in the modern era, in the last 20 years, he's chasing those mid 30 goal hauls of Mario Jardel for that Porto side. So I don't think you can blame Jonas, really.
No, I can't blame him.
Listen, man, I think
Cristiano used to do that all the time.
No, I didn't. That I never did.
Tirar o pão da boca dos outros.
No, I'll fake everybody out. I never did that.
Look, it's very similar to when one striker has a shot, the goalkeeper or defender gets a bit on it, the ball looks like it's going to go over the line, but the other guy goes in and taps in on the line because they're making sure it went in.
And that's 32. But Pat, this was different. Pat. He mushed them, bro. He like get out. He's like, I got this. He mushed them.
I don't care who scores.
Listen, I don't care neither, but he mushed. We're talking about the story here, whether these guys were upset or one another. And look, he came in, he checked them, he mushed them, pushed them out the way, tapped it in, celebrate. And then, to me, that's a non-story. You're right. To me, the story is once they get back to the circle before Arouca kicks the ball up, they were drawing at one another. And you could tell, yeah, okay, Jonas is competitive. He wants to go. Fine. Mitroglou didn't look at it that way. And that's why I said, when you mentioned it was a 50-50 ball, I said right away, depends who you ask. Because, yeah, things the next day might have been squashed, and Patrick made a good point. PR, whatever, tremendous. But at that moment, I'm telling you, Mitroglou was not pleased with that. Mitroglou was pretty upset.
Well, here's a question.
And also, sorry, one more point on this. It may actually harm Jonas in the long run more than it helped him in that, it's a sort of short-term game for a potential long-term loss, because now if you're Mitroglou, who, by the way, is wonderfully unselfish, he always takes the right option. If he's through one-on-one and he has someone square of him, he will square the ball. He doesn't take the chance and risk missing it. He plays it to his teammate who taps it in. Yeah. Now there might be a bit of doubt in his mind if he's going through and he's got Jonas alongside him and go,
screw this guy.
Exactly. So, we'll see. We'll only be able to tell that in coming games.
Here's a question for both of you. Does Mitroglou get upset if he's the undisputed starter and not be in the role that he is right now, competing with Jimenez for the spot?
Yes and no. No, because he's still playing, and as long as he's getting playing time, he's happy. But at the end of the day, don't think these guys don't have goal clauses on their contracts. This guy wants to score, because right now, Benfica hasn't picked up his option. He might be back in the championship next year. And you know what? There might be another club that one goal from 14 to 15. 15 makes a big difference. Okay?
Absolutely. That is a very good point.
It is. And so now, guys, other teams might want to pick you up. Again, Benfica hasn't picked up his option. So, listen, guys all want to be team players, but at the end of the day, don't forget what feeds their family. It ain't the being a team player and being a starter. It's the goals, especially for strikers. It's the goals, because that's what gives you the big bucks.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're gonna break here for Nelson's halftime headlines. We will be right back.
And now, the halftime headlines.
And this week we kick off by reviewing our much sought-after Argentine center back. Lisandro Lopez's agent has been flirting with Fiorentina for some time now. After rejecting the Italian club's offers of 5 million and then 6.5 million euros, Benfica has stated they'll only accept offers of 10 million plus. Serbian nomad Filip Judicic has found another temporary home in the Belgian club Anderlecht until the end of the season. We wish him luck. Luka Jovic, the 18-year-old Serbian forward, looks to be making his arrival at Benfica before the end of January from Red Star in Serbia. And finally, with many questions coming into the season, with some key players exiting and the uncertainty of a new coach, this current Benfica team under Rui Vitoria has been able to produce a whopping 50 goals in just 19 league games. Quite the task from a group that's still finding its feet and really starting to gel with a bunch of youngsters in the team. The momentum certainly is starting to swing in our direction for number 35.
And that's all for this week.
Yeah, I gotta give credit to Nelson, because we don't always have news to talk about, and he always manages to find 3 news stories.
I like that voice at the end.
Yeah.
Patrick was cracking up.
That's what gave me the giggles. I saw Chris's face; his eyes were popping out of his head when she
blame
came
it on
on.
Chris. Yeah, when in doubt, just blame it on Chris.
Good job, Nelson, as always. All right,
always.
Let's turn our attention now to the Moreirense game that happened this afternoon. Last game of the group stage for the Taça da Liga, Benfica needed a tie to make it through, and 6-1 was the score. Hat-trick for Talisca. Is Talisca Mr. Taça?
Talisca jogar, the guy. He had a tremendous game today.
I don't know about tremendous. He did score. He did put away.
I thought he's very good.
What did somebody
overall,
say?
I thought he's very good overall.
Patrick that said last week that along Jonas, Talisca might be one of the best finishers in this team.
I think he is. I really do. Behind Jonas, and I think he is. I think he proved that again tonight. I mean, the way he took the second goal, the first was a penalty. The way he took the second goal, the ball just came to him on the edge of the box. It rolled back to him from that was
It didn't
absolutely
roll back.
fantastic.
It bounced back to
No,
him.
I think that the second
one
goal
time
was
did-
actually
No, it was-
the defender was trying to clear the ball and ended
Yeah.
up at his feet.
That's what I'm saying. It did. Like Patrick said, it rolled. That bounced, and he
Yeah,
did
you're
a
right.
great
No, it's
job to
quicker
get
than
on
that.
top of it.
Yeah.
He did. You know, because Gaitan put tremendous pressure on
Yeah.
that defender, and he did a good job. He one timed it. I mean, Nielsen was out of the goal. He gave him no chance to get back there.
Yeah.
I thought he had a good game. Yes, he was brilliant as far as scoring 3 goals, but just the fact he was getting I love seeing that from players, bro. He was spreading the ball around.
Yes.
He's getting everyone else involved. And again, that's all he's asked to do.
Yeah.
That's all he's asked to do, especially at that 8 position.
Yeah.
I think if you put him in the Jonas position, he'd probably take players on.
But he
more
was in a
often than
Jonas
not.
position.
Oh, yeah, today probably. Yeah, that's right. He
Yeah.
was. Whatever, but still, I forgot about that.
But he was his release was fast and he was
Yeah, I
appearing
thought he was
in
good.
danger zones.
And he also
I
had
thought
another shot that he quickly turned and he tried to bend it
Yeah.
near post. I mean, I
He's got a good shot.
I thought he had a very good game.
He's got a
today.
good shot. I'll give you the lineup. Ederson was the goalie, and by the way, still not impressed by Ederson's feet. I don't care what people say about his feet. His feet are horrible. Thank you. Semedo, Lindelof, Jardel, and Silvio across the back. Samaris and Renato in the middle. Guedes and Gaitan on the wings. Talisca and Jimenez up front.
And by the way, Jimenez got all pissed off at Talisca because he took the PK. I want Jimenez nowhere near that.
I think that was a decision by Rui Vitória, by the way. I think that
Good.
was on the paper today. I read after the game.
He took it very well, by the way.
He did.
As well. The penalty was fantastic.
Good to see Gaitan back, as we're talking. I think he'll probably be a starter this weekend against Moreirense again. But the Jimenez, that goal that he scored,
Was that
that's pure.
Was that
it
it?
looked in. I mean, the assistant referee.
It's sad that the
called it
Portuguese league can't get a freaking camera on the line.
Yeah,
I mean,
but Chris,
really?
whether they have the camera on the line or not, it's Talisca the Liga, so I don't think they would have it.
but
These
it-
things
Yeah, but they
normally
don't
only-
have it. Yeah, but they don't have it in the Campeonato anyway.
But it's the
sure.
assistant
Okay.
referee. It's the assistant referee's call
Fine,
on that.
But still,
And he was, but
it would be okay. Look, first of all, it'd be tremendous if they would just get on with things and get, because I hate technology as far in sports, but the goal line technology absolutely deserves to be in. I think that's key.
you need that.
You need that. So it'd be nice for them to graduate
need
to that. But if you're not going to go there, at least take away the doubt. Put a camera on the goal line.
I think that
take away the doubt on the fixture list as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that that in any game where lines are involved, where it takes a ball to cross a line is involved, I think there should be technology. I mean, we've seen it in tennis. Albeit tennis, there's certain stoppages. It's not the same as a football match where it's a constant thing. But anywhere that's a doubt like that, I mean, you should apply that goal line technology. The EPL has it. I don't know who else has it around the world, but that's the future. You got to put that in. I'm
Absolutely.
sorry, you got to put that in.
And I appreciate the point about the stoppages, but how often do you see a contentious ball? Did it go over the line? Didn't it? And play goes on because the goal is not given. But there's a stoppage in play very quickly anyway. The defense hurriedly kick the ball into touch, or the team that are attacking is so frustrated the goal hasn't been given, they make a cheap foul, and then suddenly you've got that stoppage and you can go back and check it. And in the other sports, in tennis, it's become a real source of excitement, while you see the Hawkeye coming up, etc. So I think you could definitely make it there. But
Pat, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't they have something that when the ball goes over the line, it actually, like a beeper, it actually buzzes?
On what?
On the referee.
On
the
tennis?
No.
They gotta watch. They gotta
Soccer.
watch.
What? Something buzzes.
They got a special watch.
So they don't even need to stop. Once the ball goes over, it buzzes.
no, but they have the challenges. There's the challenges.
What, in soccer?
No. In
I'm talking about
tennis.
soccer.
in the EPL. In the
tennis
EPL,
they do.
referees.
Sorry,
have
you were talking
a
about
special,
football. Yes, they have a buzzer.
They
on
have
their
a special watch.
as and when the ball goes in. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
there's
right.
no need to stop it. You know what I mean? Like,
No, there is
I don't,
no
I
need
don't
to
like
stop.
stoppage. I don't like
No,
stoppage.
I mean that's the way of the future. Granted that the Portuguese league is not the
Atrasados.
richest league in the world, and also, as Chris say, atrasados. But it's a necessary evil, and I don't even know if you could call it evil. It's necessary for the truth of the game. For
Absolutely.
the good of the game is necessary. So let's get that in place.
Interestingly, actually, I think it's potentially a cultural thing as well. I remember one of the big. I was speaking to one of the people that are quite high up at Major League Soccer, and he was telling me that one of the main things the US owners have a problem with soccer is that they don't know exactly when the game is going to end, which is an alien concept for American sport. And they find it amazing that, you know, there's a random, well, there's an indicative figure of how much added time is going to be, which is then not necessarily respected or isn't. And they found that very frustrating.
It's still better than baseball or football, which I absolutely love, ladies and gentlemen. But you know that no matter how much extra time you're going to give, it's a 2-hour window and the game is over.
Yeah.
Baseball, I love baseball. It's my favorite American sport. That could go on forever. I don't want to hear it from American owners.
Collegiate soccer.
They count
collegiate soccer. They count down. Which
really?
I mean, in their defense, it's governed by a different body.
2 referees
it's not
on
by
each
FIFA.
side.
It counts down, and once it counts down, it's done.
It's no wonder they don't produce too many players these days.
Yeah, it's
you
it's
hear like the count
ridiculous.
of 10, 9, 8. The fans are screaming. The game's over.
Yeah. Benfica's in the semis.
Again,
they will now face either Braga or Rio Ave. Their game takes place tomorrow, and most likely will probably be Braga. And once I run through the fixtures, I'll let you know where that fits in Benfica's schedule for February. But now I wanted to look ahead to Moreirense for the Taça da Liga. Moreirense is currently 14th. The game happens this Sunday, 7:15 local, again at the same pitch that where Benfica played today.
2:15 US.
Yeah, Benfica, Moreirense, as I've said, 14th record, 5 wins, 5 ties, and 9 losses at home. 2 wins, 3 ties, and 4 losses. You know, I hope that Benfica, because of the result they got today, they don't go into Moreira de Konings and they underestimate this Moreirense team.
I want to see Moreirense again for one reason. I'm pretty sure Pat's going to agree with me because we were talking about this before. Yuri, whatever his name is. Medeiros. The guy, I know he's Sportingista, but the guy, he's got a beautiful left foot. So I want to see this kid play again.
Yeah. He used to play for Passos last season. He played pretty well for them. Again,
but yeah,
Benfica cannot underestimate this Moreirense team just because they've beaten them today. The other thing that I read and I found curious, but at the same time, there's a little bit of sense in it. Their coach, Mr. Leal, said that he was satisfied with the performance based on what he had planned out for this game. So take it as you will.
He didn't want to give up 7. He gave up 6.
This may very well have been a tactic on his side in order to prepare the team for what's coming this Sunday.
Well, I mean, you have to think that both games, I think he wanted or he planned for 2 different results. I think here he's trying to get points out. He's trying to, because I don't even know what the standings were, but
they needed to win, period.
Okay, they needed to win. So they had a difference. In the Campeonato, all they need to do is get a draw, and they get themselves a 1 point. For them, that would be a tremendous result.
That's a huge result.
They'll pack things in. I think Benfica would try to spread them out and try to do the one thing Steve hates, which is cross the ball into the box, because that's the easiest way to break down a compact defense. Yeah. So Benfica, I mean, you said it already. I don't think there's anything else I could add. They can't, sleep on these guys come Sunday.
Patrick, just a quick thing, and I forgot to ask you this before when we were on the Taça da Liga game. I know that what's his name? Grimaldo got his first minutes of the season, or actually for Benfica. What did you think of him?
He came on for the last half an hour, and technically he looks very good. Nice first touch, nice upright running style. He picks his head up when he gets the ball. A couple of nice crosses, I have to say. One where he really picked out. I think it was Guedes.
On a diving header.
Exactly, and then there was another one.
There was Carcelo turned on the ball, almost got it onto the far corner.
Exactly. So that was encouraging. There was an absolutely senseless, inexplicable decision to hit a ball across the edge of his 18-yard box, a 30-yard pass, but there wasn't a player in sight. I think he was trying to switch it to Semedo, but it went straight to a Moreirense player. And if you were to do that against a better side, that would be a goal. So, if you give that ball to Adrian Silva, he puts it in from 20 yards and you concede, or, whoever you want to say, Andre, whoever it is. So that was an odd decision, I thought. But then he's definitely, you can see he's well coached. He's come through at Barcelona. As I said, technically he's very good. As debuts go, tough one to make an impression on because Benfica were far and away in charge of the game, in control of the game. So it was not much for him to gain, really. I think he probably tried to do too much. If he keeps it simple, I want to see him facing a more difficult test. I want to see him over 90 minutes. I want to see him in a league match. But good to finally see him, because I know you guys and a lot of the supporters and people that listen to the podcast have been mentioning Grimaldo for a long while. And my point has always been he has no business in the starting 11 until he comes in and he earns his place and he shows what he can do. He's had 30 minutes. Maybe he'll see some more playing time on Sunday, or maybe he'll just be restricted to Tassa games until the end of the season, and then he'll have a chance to really show what he can do in pre-season. That will be my feeling, unless he absolutely blows us away with his next performances. We'll see on Sunday. But I was just looking at the league table. Moreirense are 4 points above the relegation zone. I think had that cushion been bigger, you could have made an argument that they would have just gone all out to win tonight, because a huge opportunity. Beat Benfica in a one-off game. You're playing at home and you're into the semi-finals, and suddenly you're 2 games away from winning a trophy. But because they are there, admittedly though, how often are you looking to get points against the likes of Benfica to stay in the division? Probably not. So I think the personnel for Benfica will be vastly different from what we saw tonight. Silvio will be dropped. Lindelof will be dropped. No. I think Jimenez might even be dropped as well. And just on that, I think Rui Vitória is doing a very good job. He's alternating Mitroglou and Jimenez, and he's playing them off against each other. And they're each having to respond every time. They don't know who's going to start from one week to the next, so they come in and they know they have to perform. And I think it's working quite well. Samaris, I think, will continue in the absence of Fejsa, unless there's an update on that. And so there will be changes. I think Gaitan will start again. And I expect Benfica, with Jonas coming back into the side, with Julio César back in the side, I expect Benfica to win and hopefully keep a clean sheet, because I want to see more clean sheets.
Yeah, that's a big thing. So Benfica, as I've said, moves on to the semis. So that game takes place in the 9th of February, and I'll give you Benfica's February schedule. They play Moreirense in the last day of January, which is a Sunday, and then this is what happens in the month of February. On the 7th, they will play Belenenses at the Restelo. Then they're home to play that semi-final of the League Cup, either against Braga or Rio Ave. Then after that weekend, the Taça Liga game happens midweek. That weekend, they will be home to Porto in a very crucial game. Following Porto, they're home to Zenit, another crucial game for Benfica. After that, on the 21st of February, they're at Passos de Ferreira. So a very 3 difficult games for Benfica in this short month of February. And then at the end of February, on the 28th, they're home to Nacional. So a very
União.
União da Madeira? Okay, União da Madeira. I knew it was a Madeira team. Sorry about that. So it's a very key month for Benfica. I think that that the Zenit game, and albeit this is probably already in a bonus for Benfica in the Champions League, but being that it's Zenit and it's a team that could be very accessible to us, I think that we do have the ambition to move on to the next round and to pocket a few more millions. But at the game against Porto, which is a Porto that right now with Pesero's appointment, it's a really enigma of what we're going to get from Pesero's team. Maybe the team was just tired of Lopetegui, and now they will rally around Pesero. I think that it'll be too early to start seeing Pesero DNA embedded in this team. So I really don't know what Porto team is going to be showing up at the Luz, but it's a game that we absolutely need to win in order to keep up with Sporting. That match with Sporting also comes up in March. So it's a very crucial month for Benfica. The trip to Passos de Ferreira, never easy.
Isn't the Sporting game in between another Zenit game?
Just before the second Zenit game.
For the second leg Zenit game. Yeah. So it does come up in the beginning of March.
It's crucial. I mean, these games are all crucial, not just for the Campeonato, but also for the Champions League. Benfica need to get everybody healthy, everybody ticking at the same time. And man, let's do some damage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something I didn't think at the beginning of the season. it would be possible right now.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I don't know if the Belenenses game has been set yet for that, but if it hasn't, I don't think it has. I think that will be moved to the Friday. I think the Taça da Liga game will be moved to the following Tuesday. I think Benfica will play Porto on Friday and then Zenit the following Tuesday.
Yeah.
So to give as much time as possible, but we don't know. And
it's all a big question.
It's a nightmare. An absolute nightmare, because the Porto one is the one I really want to be there for, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it because
Patrick, just cancel your plans for the next month and a half and you'll be good. Holy cow.
You notice Patrick's wearing something from the United States again?
Yeah, he's always wearing it. He loves the United States.
Land of the free, home of the brave.
Yeah, land of the brave and home of the terrified. Anyway,
let's not get political.
All right, what do we got? We got any?
We have a couple of questions from Eric_Vesper. Grimaldo had more good crosses in 20 minutes than he's had all season. We all love the big guy, but surely is it time?
No, not yet.
I think he has to earn his stripes.
Well, Silvio it's still ahead of it's still ahead of Grimaldo, man. You can't think of that Grimaldo just gonna come in unless Eliseu absolutely. I don't know, man. It's very tough.
Here's another question. This one specifically for Patrick, also from Eric_Vesper. How highly do you rate Nico in the world football? I think he's clearly world class, but I might be biased.
It's very tricky because of his nationality, first and foremost. So he can't get a look in with the Argentina national team because there's just an absolute array of talent. So to me, the world-class adjective is overused. I think Argentina have several world-class players. I think along with Germany, perhaps they're the only country that can currently say that, and Spain possibly as well. So I wouldn't say he's world-class. I think he's excellent. I think he's the standout player in Portugal by some distance. Jonas is also exceptional in Portugal. But just based on the fact that, to me, if he were world class, he would be playing for Argentina
but he is part of the fixture. He is part of the setup.
He's in and out of the squad. He doesn't ever really make the final squad for tournaments. He's always in the pre squad. You know,
I think a lot of Pat. I'm sorry to interrupt, but a lot of that. I'm not saying that he's above any of those guys there, but some of that has to do with the fact that he's in Portugal.
Yeah,
because I think had he been in Spain or Italy, I think it would have been a no.
No, and I think you're right, because Lavezzi was getting picked a lot even when he was out of form and things like that. And there were definitely some odd decisions with regards to the Argentina national team. But my point is this: if he were, you know, you've also got to think that, okay, the league's prestige is one thing, the visibility is another thing. But ultimately, if you are a national team head coach of one of the biggest footballing nations in the world, you know what you're doing. You can see a player's ability, and if someone can contribute, then, you know, and that's not my only point. I think that's a way of me justifying the fact that I don't think he's world class. I think he's brilliant, and I think he could go to several other leagues and several bigger leagues, not necessarily bigger clubs, bigger leagues with more competition in them, and I think he could perform very well. For one reason or another, he doesn't, and that's to Benfica's credit. And, you know, maybe he'll look back on his career and he will start to wonder whether he didn't get the recognition that he should have got because he was playing in Portugal. So maybe that is a factor.
Or he'll look to see, I got to go somewhere.
I do think that will ultimately trigger a move. I think that any player, I don't care who you are, that competitiveness inside you is going to want you to go see what it is that you could have done at these other leagues, even though he's very happy where he's at. Another question, Lover's out of time. Is there a future for Talisca, or does he only show up in games like today?
So far, he hasn't impressed me.
He played very well today, but you know, it's very difficult. He needs to, it's such a tough one with Talisca, because to me it's all about desire. I see him play today and it seems so easy for him. I know it's against Moreirense, and say what you like about it, it's the Taça da Liga, etc. I think this guy could have a much bigger role than he has. And you know, you've seen him off the bench with the 2 6-0s that he came off the bench and looked very good, scoring against Belenenses, scoring against Marítimo. And it's not just his goals. He's a very classy footballer on the ball. He gets the ball, he spreads the play wide, gets his head up, he's not rushed, he's technically very good. And I think he could offer a lot, and I think he could be a viable option in an 8 position if he were to become a bit more disciplined and be consistent over 90 minutes. So I'm a fan of Talisca. At the moment, I think he's got to show what he can do as an impact player off the bench, which he doesn't always do. And if he can do that, then maybe he'll start to get a few more starts. That's a terrible sentence. I apologize.
I think it's hard for him. Here we go, Patrick.
I haven't figured out the list.
I think it's hard for him to show what he's really worth in this system. And in Portugal, with the compact and the technical football, say what you want about Portuguese football, it's very defensive and very technical. That being said, I think if you were to get a move to I love to see him at a Crystal Palace, a move to the English game with a lot more space, a lot more time, and with his cannon of a shot, I think the guy will be lights out.
Yeah, send them away. 5 million. Take them.
It's 5. Come on, dude. That's too. Dude,
5 million in a bag of balls.
This is not Salvation Army, bro.
5 million in a bag.
Last question from Mike Da Costa. Due to Savio's injury history, do you see him coming off the bench for a period of time, especially with play of Carcella and Pizzi?
He's going to be. First of all, he's got to get in the squad.
He's going to be integrated slowly.
Once he makes the squad, I think that will happen. I think what we'll see is he'll be included in the matchday squad. The matchday squad that is more than the 18, so the 21 or 22 that are called up, and then he won't make it. As we saw the other day with Grimaldo against Arouca
and Semedo.
And Semedo indeed. And then I think then he'll start to make the 18, and they have a couple of games of that. Then there'll be a couple of sub appearances, and only then, once he's shown that he's fit, could he begin to start games? And that's why I've been saying I think it's very unlikely he's going to play too much of a part this season, because we're nearly into February now, and once you add all those games up, there might only be 5 or 6 come the end of the season when he starts, which could be very crucial in the running.
One last one here before we go from Elio Delgado. Does the recent form and string of results change your mind on this season's expectations? I think that I think that there's a huge thing in here, and I don't want to extend myself into it because I have to go. But the argument with Benfica in letting go of JJ was Benfica wanted to prove that the structure could win championships and not be solely dependent on the coach. And I think that Benfica is trying to prove that right now. I think the appointment of Rui Vitória, I think that we expected a transition phase. We didn't really expect to go as I don't think it has gone seamlessly. But I think there's been a drop of Rui Vitória. There's a transition period. I think that right now we're in a good place. I don't know what's to come and for the rest of the season, but we're in a good place. I didn't really expect much from this season, to be honest with you.
I think that these last 9 games have definitely given me a lot more hope, I should say. Lifted my spirits. I'm looking at this team a little bit different. But again, we haven't really played any really tough competition.
Goes back to what Patrick was saying.
So you have to be very cautious. Let's not get carried away. Let's not get overly excited. Let's get a victory against Portos of the world. And we're still yet to beat Sporting this year too.
Yeah,
so I mean,
that's crucial.
We have crucial games coming up.
You need to beat Sporting if you want to win the championship. That's a big deal, and especially at their home, which they've already beaten us at our house. So I think that's it. You have been listening to the Benfica podcast, talking to the Benfica podcast, and you've been watching also the Benfica podcast with Cristiano Oliveira at Tencio10 on Twitter, and Patrick Kendrick, the play-by-play voice of BTV during Benfica broadcast games for English-speaking countries, at Patrick Kendrick with 1K in there, at Benfica podcast, at planetbenfica.co.uk is where you can find our friends over at Planet Benfica. At Steve Santos 6. Steve. And I think that's all we got. Thanks a lot for checking us out. At one point, we had a decent number of viewers, and we're glad that we're able to entertain everybody and keep you engaged. Thank you very much for you guys that check us out every week and tune into YouTube and watch our iJinx and just do and talk about Benfica, which is something that we love. Thank you, Patrick, again for your presence, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you in next week again.
Look forward to it.
Off the bench, player.
All right. Thank you so much for everybody's support at Benfica Podcast, BenficaPodcast.com. Thank you very much. And next week we will be back. We will look back at the Moreirense game and we'll look ahead to whoever we play next. I always do this.
Good night.
See ya.